And now looking at the other half of quick quad number 6, let's look at ACT part 12. Number 1, if x times y is 144, but then x plus y is 25, such that x is bigger than y, what is the value when we subtract x and y? So this seems like a lot. There's going to be a lot of guessing and check. So basically this almost comes back to our factoring skills. You're being asked what two numbers multiply to get 144, but when we add together to get 25. Remember your little diamond problems. This is kind of what that's insinuating. One thing that might help us out here as we list the factors of 144, we know two numbers have to equal 25. So, or when we add two numbers, it has to be 25. So we know we can't be using numbers larger than 25. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the smallest numbers possible that when multiplied together gets you 144. 144 is a perfect square. Actually, there's going to be enough room here. So let's start with 12. I know the square root of 144 is 12. So 12 times 12 gets me the 144, but when I add 12 and 12, it takes me to 25, so that's not going to work, okay? Now let's work backwards here. Is 11 a factor of 144? So in my calculator quickly, I'm just going to do 144 over 11. No, let's go to 10. It doesn't end in a 0, so that's not going to work. So let's try 9. 144 divided by 9. So we have 9 times 16. Okay, well, if I add 9 and 16, boom, it does take me to the 25. And then, well, again, x has to be larger than y. So this has to be the x, this has to be the y. 16 minus 9. 16 minus 9 takes me to 7. Okay, so again, very, very similar to the skills we use in factoring, be able to find the factors of 144 that add to get the 25. Just process of elimination is, you know, we probably have to use numbers smaller than 25 there. That's why it worked from the end and not from the beginning. All right, number 2. Which of the following is the sine of angle C in the right triangle below? So we have angle C here. It asks us about the sine. Remember, the sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So if this is my angle, the opposite side would be a 5. And a hypotenuse, remember, hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle. And it looks a little fuzzy, but I think it's a 13. So the sine of this specific triangle looks like we have 5 over 13. Boom, we have A. Not too bad there, just got to remember your trig functions there. Number 3. The volume V of the right circular cone with radius r and height h is shown below can be found using our formula there. A cone-shaped paper cup has a volume of 142, height of 2.1. What is the radius? So we have we have 3 variables. They gave us 2. Let's go ahead and substitute those guys in. All right, so it told us that the volume is 142. And 142 is equal to 1/3 of pi. R squared, we don't know the radius, that's what it's asking us for, so we're just going to keep that as r squared. And the height they told us is 2.1. So again, we have values, substitute them in, and now we need to solve for r. This is a big equation here, kind of let's take it step by step. Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put everything on the same line. I don't like this fraction here. So everything over here is being divided by a 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply everything through by 3. So 142 times 3 says we have 426 is now equal to pi r squared times 2.1. Again, you've kind of got a little bit of a mess here. I'm going to go ahead and, well, none of our answers have pi in them, so something's going to have pi is going to have a numerical value. We can't leave it as pi. So let's just use pi as 3.14. So let's go ahead and multiply the 3.14 into 2.1. The thing that's kind of crazy about this equation, there are a lot of different routes you could take with this. I'm not saying the one I'm using any route you take, it's going to be kind of the same thing here. So 426 is now equal to, 3.14 times 2.1 is 6.594 r squared. All right, so now this is stuck together by multiplication, so I'm going to divide that off. So 426 divided by 6.594. You could round. I'm not going to round just yet, because the quicker you round, the further apart your answer is going to be, because you just keep approximating approximations. So now I am going to approximate, because when I divided that 426 and 6.54, I got this big decimal. I'm going to leave it at 64.6. I'm going to work over here. So now I have 64.6 is equal to r squared. We have a square, so I'm going to square root both sides, and hopefully you should be able to see that looking at your answers, well, which one's going to be close to that? Well, look at this. 8 squared is 64, right? So, or if you don't see that, second square root of 64.6 is pretty close to 8 there. All right, so that's just one thing about, we didn't get the definite answer of 8, but because we approximated, that's kind of, just kind of what happens there. You're not going to get the exact number. Oh, and it even tells us to the nearest centimeter, whatever. 4, a boat departs Port Isabel, Texas, traveling to an oil rig. The oil rig is located 9 miles east, 12 miles north of the boat's departure point. About how many miles is the oil rig from the departure? So if we talk about our departure being here, it tells me that we moved 9 miles east, and then we moved 12 miles north. Well, that's the route that we took, but if we were to connect these things by a straight line, what is the actual distance? So when I do that, we have a nice little right triangle here. This is a perfect typical problem of Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared gives us this c squared. So 12 squared is 144 plus 9 squared is 81, gives me that c value squared. Put in your calculator and get 144 plus 81. So we want the square root of 225, which is 15. C is equal to 15. Circle in and go.